there, kids. It's time to sit because Battleground Casual is on. Here's Aaron or Matt.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Battleground Casual, the show where we discuss movies, not debate them. My name is Aaron Knoll, and despite what that very old intro says, Matt will unfortunately be on hiatus for the next few weeks. He's actually actively working overtime in order to pay off long-standing debt, so we wish him well in that endeavor, because this channel is certainly not going to pay it. But instead, I will be joined for tonight and probably a few other nights by our head of Movie Battleground, Mr. Jake Tato. Sir, how are you feeling this evening?
Feeling fantastic. Thank you for having me, and apologies for the delay.
Oh, there's no delay. This uploads at a different time, so we will be on time when it uploads. But with that said, today we are discussing CinemaCon, which of course is, over the years, it's become a bigger and bigger event as they've opened the doors to movie media and different people kind of coming in and getting a look at what's coming up in the latest in film. Now, to go over the biggest discrepancy that people have when it comes to CinemaCon, CinemaCon is not necessarily about announcements. Obviously, there can be some big announcements, and there were a couple of big announcements at this year's CinemaCon, but it's not Comic-Con in that sense where people show up to blow minds and bring a bunch of celebrities on the stage and make everyone leave just all sorts of hot, sweat, and wetty in three different ways. This is about giving theater owners and pundits and various different people in the film industry a look at what is coming in the very near immediate future to sort of help get theater owners excited about the next year in film. And certainly we needed it this year, and we'll get into that in a second. But first of all, we have two guests with us here who I imagine to some extent have been paying attention to this stuff themselves, but they're just both big film fans anyways, so they can certainly talk about what's coming up in the near future. And we have two people who have not been on the channel in quite a while. First off, I'm going to introduce a returning guest who was on the first version of this show a few times, but I don't think he's been on the channel since. We have Kevin Moreno joining us. Kevin, how's it going, sir?
It's going fine. I'm excited to talk about all this that happened at CinemaCon and maybe talk about an issue I have with Warner Brothers with one of their announcements.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get into every major studio here. And joining us for the first time on this show, he is a film reviewer and a figure in this community who certainly knows what it is like to have a good theater experience. And I'm sure he can tell us about a bad theater experience if he wanted to. We're joined by Mr. Dan Skip Allen. Dan, welcome to the show, man. How's it going?
Hanging in there, Aaron. I'm glad to be on talking about CinemaCon with you guys. Yeah, I've been through many of great cinema experiences and, a handful of bad ones in my day.
Absolutely. All right. So normally we open the show with a buy or sell segment related to movie news, but this entire show is dedicated to movie news. And because anyone who mattered in the industry was in Las Vegas this week, attending panels in the morning and getting fucked up in the evening, no real major movie news broke aside from what happened in Vegas this week. Yes, for 1 week only, what happened in Vegas did not stay in Vegas. So with that said, we are going to go straight into it, and we're going to be doing the panels in order of how they happened. So we're going to go ahead and start with Sony Pictures. They were the first studio to go, and by all accounts that I've heard and read, they might be the worst presentation of the bunch. I guess you get the worst out. Sony Pictures don't have a lot coming over the next year, so they didn't have very much to hype up. It was a lot of like, this was almost a Comic-Con presentation. Like, they were talking about stuff that's happening in 2027 because they do not have much coming for the next year. But by all accounts, the person who ran the presentation, which is Sony head Tom Rothman, might have been one of the worst speakers who was on stage during the event. And stage presence matters, ladies and gentlemen, when you're going to pack this many people into a theater and make them listen to you for an hour. And where they run like an hour 45 or something. I think these things run for, like, they go on, man. You gotta be entertaining. And by all accounts, this guy sounds like he should hire someone to do it for him. With that said, though, Sony, of course, do have a couple of big IPs that have things coming out in the future. Of course, we have 28 years later, the Spider-Man films belong to Sony. Karate Kid Legends is the next big thing they have coming out. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tato. Of the Sony picture slate that we had announced, is there anything that stood out to you want to lead off with discussing?
We've talked a bit about Resident Evil in the past. That one still is reasonably up there for me. Like I said, I'm a huge Krager guy, so anything any Whitest Kids member does, I'm somewhat interested, and any video game thing I'm somewhat interested in. So that seems fun enough. And then tie into that Zelda, I guess, which I didn't realize is somehow, I guess, a Sony thing. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh. So Nintendo, what I had heard is that originally they thought about partnering with Universal to do an animated project. And then Sony Pictures came in with a bid for a live action project. So that's who they're partnering with. Nintendo as a studio, I don't believe are actually legally aligned with anyone. So they can go and work with whoever they want. Now, if you live in Japan, I'm sure it's very odd to see Nintendo working with Sony. But hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do to make money. And I mean, I'm sure we can all agree if they pull this off, considering, like Mario came out, Mario made $1 billion, but Mario had already had a failed attempt at a film. Zelda has never been tried. So if they do this and if they pull it off, they have a big opportunity to succeed. Now, at CinemaCon, there wasn't very much given about Zelda, aside from the fact that they are actually actively working on it now. Like, it's not just, there is a date, March 2027 is when it's set to release. Get tripped up. There is a March 2027 is when it'll release. And they brought out the director of the film, Wes Ball, to speak. So I'm gonna ask you guys, where your thoughts are on Zelda. Kevin, I'll go to you next. For me, at least, there's a name that excites me and there's a name that terrifies me. Wes Ball, I think, is a very exciting choice for a director. For those who don't know Wes Ball by name, he has a background in visual effects. His first directorial efforts were the Maze Runner trilogy. He did all 3 films. And then his most recent effort was the latest Planet of the Apes film, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So I like his track record so far. And I think more than just his track record, I think he is getting better as a director. I think every film that he has made, he has looked a little better as a director. So I have hope for Zelda. What terrifies me is that Avi Arad is involved. That man has a horrible track record in recent years. The Spider-Man franchise is the least of it. He also did Borderlands last year, which did not go well either. Now, to be fair, I think Wes Ball is a much better director than anyone who did any of those Sony films. And I think he's a better director for something like this than Eli Roth. Roth has his niche in horror, but outside of horror, he's very unproven still. So I have faith still that Wes Ball can deliver a film, but Arad seemingly does not know how to run a production anymore, and that is terrifying. Kevin, first off, are you a fan of Zelda at all? Is that something that you know anything about?
I've played enough of the Legend of Zelda games. I've never been in it, but I played enough. They're very good. I'm excited for Wes Ball. I really like the Maze Runner trilogy. I think he did an amazing job with it, and I really like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes last year. I'm confident in him. Maybe the only thing I'm worried about is the script, but I forgot who's doing the screenwriting. But I really have faith in Wes Ball. But I'm not too worried about Avi Arad because he may not be. I think mostly because I don't have issues with him. I've not seen Borderlands. I've actually have a guilty pleasure with Uncharted, and I really like the Sony Venom films. I think they're the dumbest mess of comic film I've ever seen, but I've actually liked all three of them. So I'm pretty confident. I'm kind of wondering how are they going to cast Link. That's the one thing I'm curious about.
Yeah, Dan, I'll turn it to you. What are your thoughts on Zelda?
Yeah, I mean, I played this game. I love this game when I was a kid. I've been waiting for an animated Legend of Zelda. Is it going to be animated?
No.
Like
no, it is live
Mario
action.
Brothers? Oh, it's live action. Okay.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I'd rather see the animated version of it, but and they don't have the Illumination and Universal has Mario Brothers, but Sony has Legend of Zelda somehow. That's weird.
Yes.
That's weird. But no, I mean, I played this game when I was a kid. I'm not a big video game guy. I don't play video games. I will tell you firsthand. Anybody that knows me will tell you I don't play video games. But I did play this as a kid. I'm skeptical about a Legend of Zelda out of the hands of Illumination or Universal because I feel like if they did it as an animated movie, it would be pretty damn good, especially the way they did the Mario Brothers movie. But you know, I always give people the benefit of the doubt. Wes Ball, though, you guys have already mentioned the Maze Runner movies, the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes last summer. I love that movie. So putting them two together, a good IP like that, and him. So we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, hey, thumbs up. I'm looking forward. I don't like to crap on people before I know what I'm crapping on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. All right. So do we have any more thoughts on that one, or do you guys want to move, if we can move on? Kevin, I'll go to you next then. Is there anything from that Sony slate that stood out to you as something that's worth bringing up? They also had, just to run some things down for memory, they had Anaconda, 28 years later, both Spider-Man films. They had the animated film Goat. What else do they have? I Know What You Did Last Summer, Karate Kid.
I kind of want to talk about this Spider-Man mostly because I'm glad that we got a new title we call Brand New Day, which I kind of like it. Then again, I did a musical adaptation of The Wiz in high school, so I kind of been singing that song ever since they dropped it. And I'm kind of curious. I kind of wish they talked about more, but then again, we don't know much. And I think it's coming out next year.
It is, yeah. So Spider-Man 4, which they gave the title Spider-Man Brand New Day, is the name of the film. Yeah, so it's dated for July 31st next year. I don't know which one is more interesting, the fact that it's about 2 months after Doomsday or the fact that it's 2 weeks after Nolan. So for all the Tom Holland fans out there, you're going to have a lot in July. Have fun. Yeah, I get why they wouldn't say too much right now because and that's kind of the thing with the Sony panel, right? Is they had so little that's coming in like the immediate future, and specifically so much of their slate is coming before next after next CinemaCon, that it really did feel like a lot of these they just walked out on stage and were like, "Yeah, this is happening, woo!" and then walked back off again. But yeah, I mean, look, obviously. It's being directed by Destin Daniel Cretton, who did Shang-Chi, among other films prior to the MCU. But I would say overall Shang-Chi was well received. Do we have any detractors of the film here, or was it overall positive with this group?
I liked it. The CGI in the second half was a little janky for me, but overall
sure,
I liked
yeah.
it.
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of faith in his ability to pull this film off. Certainly I like him as a choice, although frankly I thought all the names they met with were interesting. At one point they had spoken to Justin Lin, which if you'd ever seen a Fast and Furious movie, you'd be going, why? But if you saw Star Trek Beyond, you'd go, oh, okay, maybe I kind of get where they're going. They met with Adil and Bilal, who did the Bad Boys films, as well as Miss Marvel, but they settled on Destin Cretton. And I've said before on this channel with Spider-Man that while I loved No Way Home, and I do think it's a great film, I feel like we got cheated out of what could have been a really interesting, unique Spider-Man film in this film where Spider-Man's identity is public and now he has to go back to living an everyday life. How do you do that when you are exposed? And we got about 30 minutes of it and they threw it to the multiverse stuff. And so there is a confliction in my mind of like, okay, you gave us a little bit and the multiverse stuff you gave us was good, but I kind of walked out not getting what I would have wanted out of that film from the post-credit scene a couple years before. And with now where we're at in the MCU, where no one knows Spider-Man's identity, he is just a kid who, or he's a grown-up now, he's in college, but he's a kid who exists, and he is also a superhero. But not only do people not know that he is Spider-Man, they don't know who he is. So he's having to establish a whole new identity, which is, I'm assuming, where they're pulling the title from, Brand New Day. For anyone who's curious, that is an actual comics arc, although the comics arc is related to Mephisto, so I do not imagine that's what they're going to do with the movie. It'd be very weird if this is where they decided to introduce Mephisto in the MCU. But
I think he's
the
coming
idea of...
I think Mephisto's coming in Ironheart. Don't quote me on that, but I think I heard.
Well,
Mephisto
yeah, if who everyone thinks is playing him, yeah, I get what you're saying, but I won't go much deeper than that. But I think this film has potential because the one thing that I think Destin Cretton is good at, and I'm going to refer to his work before the MCU, specifically a film called Short Term 12. He is great at character work. And in Shang-Chi, I thought he did a really great job at connecting you to this set of characters really quickly. I think with Wenwu as a villain, he created one of the most empathetic villains in the MCU. And comparatively, there's not necessarily a lot of screen time for him compared to some other villains. Like, he made it work very, very quickly. So I like him as a pick for this because I think he can give me what I'm looking for. But also, this movie comes out after Doomsday. So there's just as much a chance that this is another multiversal, everything's up in the air, who knows what type of movie. So we'll see. Tato, did you have any thoughts on it?
I know exactly as much about this movie as I want to.
Understood. Dan, I'll throw it to you then, sir. And then when you're finished talking about Spider-Man, go ahead and volunteer a film for yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's called Brand New Day. Are we going to get the New Day here as villains? They're going for the villain role right now in WWF. Can you imagine if somehow Brand New Day shows up in this movie as goofy cameos or something like that, just for the fun of it? But no, I mean, I don't think we're going to get New Day in here. But no, I think I just want to see how they connect Spider-Man 2, Secret Wars, and how he gets the black costume. We want to see stories that happened while he had the black costume. Stuff like Kraven's Last Hunt and some of these type of crime, more gritty, grounded crime type storylines. And I want to see a Spider-Man Venom movie done correctly, not goofy freaking Spider-Man 3, which was awful. But I'm not the biggest fan of the Venom movies overall. I mean, the third one had some funny moments and some interesting things. I haven't been the biggest fan of the Tom Hardy Venom movie. So I'll be honest with you. I don't think Venom has been done right. Yeah. Maybe that's
not in theater.
Oh, no, he has.
And nailed him in the game.
Yeah. Oh, in the game. Yeah. See, I don't play the games, but okay. No, I hear those Spider-Man games are pretty good. The newer Spider-Man games have been pretty good. But yeah, I want to find a way where he gets the black costume in and we get into some of that gritty crime stuff. I'm sick and tired of this kind of stuff. There's so many great grounded characters that we could have Spider-Man interact with, like Daredevil and the Punisher and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But we'll see. You never know. I mean, I could be sitting here a year from now be like, look, I told you that on that show. Remember that, Aaron? No. 28 years later, guys, I'll tell you right now, the first 28 Days Later movie is phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. I love Cillian Murphy in that movie. The fact of the matter is that you have all these people that were involved with the first 28 weeks and 28 Days Later movies involved in this, whether it be writing, acting, cameo, directing, whatever, it bodes well. And that trailer, oh my God, did that suck me in right away, guys. I am all in for 28 years later. I am so in for that movie. You have no idea. That could be one of my favorite movies of the year if they do it right. And you know, I'm all on board for Ralph Fiennes. I'm a big Ralph Fiennes fan. So I hope that I'm crossing my fingers. I hope 28 years later is what I think it's going to be.
Yeah, and I would say Sony clearly believe in the film, considering they've already like funded and produced. I think it's called The Bone Temple is the follow-up, which will be released in January of 26. They had Danny Boyle there to talk about 28 years later, but they also brought out Nia DaCosta, who directed the sequel to the film. And I think that is such an interesting move to say that you have this much faith in this creative team that you're going to produce a second film before the first one's even out. And to then also feel so comfortable with this creative team that they go, well, we wrote the film, but we want to bring someone else in to direct it. And to be fair, I like Nia DaCosta as a director, and I don't necessarily think she was the problem with the Marvels, but Nia DaCosta was the director of the Marvels. And it'd be very easy for Sony to go, do we want to trust her? But they trust Danny Boyle and they trust Alex Garland so much that they're like, if she's your pick, then we're going to run with it. And I hope these movies turn out great, but I'm honestly pulling for the sequel more than I am for the first one, because I think Nia DaCosta is a very talented director, and I think she's a great example of how sometimes a director can be just chewed up and spit out by the machine. It's not just the Marvel machine, it's the studio machine. And you know, if this one's good and then she can follow up Danny Boyle with a great film, I think that it'll be great. And the idea that you could get two of these within 6 months of each other. I haven't done the math, but I want to say the release dates, they might be like 28 weeks apart from each other. I haven't actually done the math, but from June to January, we're within that range of like 7 months. So there's a chance they could be about 28 weeks from each other, barring any delays.
Wow. That's crazy. That's coincidence, huh?
Tato, Kevin, do you guys have any thoughts on 28 years later?
Nope.
Hey, fair play.
I'm interested. Like, I've been a while since I've seen any of the 28 films. I was excited for Nia DaCosta. I like the Marvels. I had so much fun with it, and I liked her remake of the Candyman. So it was interesting to see that one.
Yeah, the Candyman was good. I did like that. Absolutely, you're right about that. I thought that was a good remake. I'm not a big proponent of remakes as per se, but I actually did like that remake of the Candyman and the setting and all that stuff.
All right, so I have a couple other films we'll run down real quick before we move on. The first one was I want to talk about the fact that so Sony made a big thing about how like the next big thing they have coming out is Karate Kid's Legends. And that is true. It is a big film coming out, but they have a release before that. And that is at the end of this month, Until Dawn, based on the video game of the same name, directed by David Sandberg, who did Annabelle Creation and the Shazam films, is coming out. And they just like brushed over it. Like no one from the film was here to speak. There was no new footage shown. There was no trailer put out. And it was apparently just like, yeah, in the middle of like a series of just quick updates. They were like, Until Dawn comes out later this month. Woo! And they moved on from it.
Yeah, it's weird.
Does that worry
Yeah.
anyone else?
Red flags, red flags.
Yeah, I feel like it's making me worried because I like the idea of what they're going with Until Dawn. I know fans of the game hate it, but I'm curious about how it's gonna work because I like the game Until Dawn. I love how creative they're doing it with this one and not actually adapting it. So I'm curious about it, but seeing how they kind of treated it that way, I'm like, I'm kind of worried now.
Yeah, I see. So, and personally, I've never played the game, but I have looked into it and I understand what the concept of it is. To me, Until Dawn just seems like watching a horror movie, but interactive. Like it feels like the full scale predecessor to something like what Netflix did with Bandersnatch, that Black Mirror movie a couple of years ago, where you are basically watching a movie, but you can just kind of pick what happens next, and it makes the choices, and you get the version of the movie that you're watching, except it's fully animated as a video game, whatever. And I think it's a really, really cool concept for a game, but I kind of understand why you wouldn't adapt that directly, because that just feels like you're setting yourself up for failure, because now you have to pick the best version of the game. So when I heard they were taking the same mythology and creating a new story within that world, and obviously Peter Stormare was in the game, so clearly they're making connections to it directly, but also creatively, like the Sandberg and the writer of the film, Gary Dalberman, who also did the Annabelle films with him, has said like each time that the timer resets and they're all brought back to life, it's a new genre almost. So like our way of shaking it up is like you'll be in one kind of horror subsect for a little bit and then we'll move into another horror subsect, and each sort of death is this different experience. That is really ambitious. And I also could see how that could go wrong really quickly. So I was just curious, like, does that stand out as a bad sign to anyone? Or do you think maybe they just don't want to show any more than they already have? Is it as simple as that? Or should we be concerned?
I I really want to be hopeful and say they want to keep things on the down low because I feel like that really does make sense. But then again, it's Sony and horror, and I don't have that much confidence with.
They gave a lot away in the trailer. All right. So if you saw that trailer, you get a lot. You kind of get the idea of what it is. How they get from one thing to the next in the trailer, that's going to be how the movie either sinks or swims. You know what I mean? How they justifiably get from one section of the movie to the next section of the movie. If it's done intelligently and smart, it'll be a success of a movie. If it's done stupidly, maybe they put all the good stuff in the trailer, like a lot of studios do these days. And horror movie trailers tend to do that a lot too, along with comedy trailers.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so the next thing we'll move on to real quick before we move on is Sony Pictures Animation. Of course. Well, okay. Well, I'm going to address it real quickly. They dated Spider-Verse. They dated it for June. But I don't know if there's much of a conversation to be had because, again, it's so far in advance they couldn't really show anything. They showed a sizzle reel of new footage in the theater, and they did release, like, you can go to Sony's like social media. They released screenshots from that sizzle reel publicly. But even the audio they played was from the old films. Like, it was a trailer based off of audio from old. So there's nothing really there to discuss.
Well,
when
there's
we're talking
also
Sony.
Oh, sorry, Aaron. Go ahead.
Oh no, what? I was building to a joke. So if you want to make the point real quick, go ahead. That's fine.
No, I was going to say there is the controversy behind these movies with the unions and pays and all this kind of stuff. So there's probably, I'm sorry, something got in my eye. Something to do with not having voices and not getting a lot of newer footage is because they had these behind the scenes issues that were very like out there in the news that are major stories involving Miller, Lord and Miller, and the whole being the producers of this, and they had some major problems with the second half of
Of
this
course,
movie.
yeah.
So that's probably the reason why there wasn't a lot of stuff yet. And it's going to be interesting. They put a 2027 release date on it. I hope they can get that 2027 because of all the controversies involving this movie.
I think they will. I was gonna say I don't want to. I think they will make their release date. I think the internet in general, I think, is overblowing the delays related to the film. I understand that there were legitimate concerns that needed to be addressed, but I think the average person is upset more so because they have to wait, and people like fail to forget that the time frame between the first film and the second film, if this movie makes its release date, was longer than the wait between the second film and the third film. The only mistake Sony really made was dating it at a date that was like seemingly impossible to make, and apparently it was dated because of like miscommunication, which is honestly Sony through and through. But when we're talking Sony animation, Tato, you got a Bulls hat on. You a basketball guy?
From time to time.
Talk to me about GOAT, man. We got Steph Curry coming up in a film claiming he sent in a video, he's one of the GOATs. Now he is a GOAT in an animated film. Does anyone care about this? I'm asking in general. I thought it was a funny concept, but like, does anyone care?
Yeah, why not?
God.
Why not? Perfect. Why not? Sure.
Is Tom Brady in this?
No, that was 80 for Brady. They did that one a few years ago.
Oh, that was great.
That was actually really fun. I got to that recently and enjoyed it quite a bit.
Oh, God.
All right,
no,
well,
can
Tato,
I just say real quick on the Karate Kid, though? I want to just say the kid from Karate Kid. If you haven't seen this movie, there's a movie that came out last summer called Touch. Phenomenal movie, I believe. This kid, I believe,
Ben Wang.
Ben Wang.
This Ben Wang, this kid, when I saw that he was
Or
cast in
Chang?
this.
Shit. Am I racist?
What'd you say?
I thought Tato said a different name.
No,
we said the same thing.
This kid,
okay, Ben
I'm
Wang.
telling you,
okay,
he's a good little actor. And when I heard he was cast in this role, I said, "Oh, here we go. This kid's getting some roles." They really liked him from that movie that he was in. I keep thinking it's Touch, but you correct me if it's wrong. I saw him in something last year.
Is it Sight?
Sight. That's right. He played the doctor, young self. That's right. He was really good in that. And I thought, oh, okay, this is the kid they got. That intrigued me. I just wanted to put that out there. This kid intrigues me.
Yeah, I was gonna say with Karate Kid, and then I don't have much to say on this because I'm one of the few people in the modern day who isn't the biggest Karate Kid fan. I really like the original film. I actually really like the Jackie Chan one. I think the second one is good. I think the third one is really bad. I think the Hilary Swank one is even worse. I've never seen Cobra Kai, so I have no opinion on any of that. But with that said, when I first heard they were making this movie, I thought, okay, sure, why not? Let's take, I guess if we're meal piecing what works, let's take Jackie Chan and cross him over into, sure, okay, we can make it work. And then you're right. So I was going to go to a different thing. The most egregious thing about the marketing for this movie is that in the trailers, they say introducing Ben Wang, which I understand that on a global scale, he's never had a lead role like this. But he was also the lead in a Disney Plus show called American Born Chinese, where he literally does martial arts. So I found that very weird. Like, there's proof of like, okay, this kid can do this. Like, it's very weird that they are marketing it like they're the ones to discover this kid. Because I remember the whole press thing was like, we auditioned hundreds of kids and saw and then I saw his name and I was like, oh, the American Born Chinese kid. He's not an unknown. What happened? All right, sure. But that show, I'm assuming it's still on Disney Plus. They may have pulled it, but I think it's still there. So if it is, it's a good show to go check out. But so I was like, okay, that's a good bit of casting. I like him. And then the director of the film is Jonathan Entwistle, who's best known for his work on Netflix. He did The End of the Fucking World and I Am Not Okay with This. And he was supposed to reboot Power Rangers for Netflix and actually walked away from it to do this movie, which I think says a lot about the script. The fact that he would develop something himself for years and then walk away to make this movie. As someone who doesn't care about Karate Kid, I think this looks great. And I have a lot of faith in the movie being good. And the newest trailer they released from CinemaCon also looks very good.
That's good news.
I had a thought, but I forgot it. Tato or Kevin, I'll go to you. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I've been thoroughly in the universe for the past 7 years since Cobra Kai launched. I was never a huge Karate Kid guy, a little too young for it. But I love Rocky, and Karate Kid has always been like Rocky Jr., so it plays on the same level for me. But I really dug Cobra Kai, so I'm happy to get into this. Not the biggest fan of the Jackie Chan, but I also don't hate it the same way a lot of the community seems to. It's fine. Taraji P. Henson's pretty fantastic in it. So I'm reasonably excited to get one more ride in this universe because it might be like, I'm sure we'll come back to these characters at some point, but this might be the last one we get for a while at this point, I think.
Possibly, yeah. Unless it does just so exceedingly well that they're like, we need one in 3 years.
Green light.
Always a possibility. Kevin, any thoughts before we move on?
This was interesting for me. I've not ever fully seen the first Karate Kid. I actually, funny thing, I've seen the Hillary Strike one because I think it came on cable one time years ago, and I watched it like, wow, this isn't good. And I never saw the remake, and I never seen Cobra Kai. When I saw the first trailer, I'm like, look at me, it looks really good. Then when I just today got that trailer on it when I saw a Minecraft movie, and I was really amazed by it. It got me really excited, and I'm kind of really curious want to see it. And also, I kind of want to dip my toe in Cobra Kai.
The first 2 seasons, Kevin. If you watch those 2 seasons and you're not interested in Cobra Kai, you won't be interested. That's what's going to get you either in or out of Cobra Kai, the first 2 seasons.
I would go so far as to say the first 3 episodes almost.
All right, maybe
Yeah,
3 episodes. All right, there you go. It's a Johnny Lawrence thing. If you're a fan of Johnny Lawrence, you're going to love this show. If you're not a fan of Johnny Lawrence, it ain't for you.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and move on then. The last thing that we'll touch on with Sony before we move on, because we do have to move on, is I don't think there's a lot necessarily to say about the Beatles movies being made. There's going to be 4 of them. They're being made by Sam Mendes. But very quick, when we're discussing CinemaCon, the big announcement that was made is that all of these films will be released within the same month. Now, currently, it's not known if that means they're launching them on the same weekend or they're going to stagger them out, so one a week for a month. Again, it's not really known what the approach will be there. But April of 2028 is the date that they've set roughly to have 4 films produced. So I just want to know, again, all the information that we learned at CinemaCon about the movies in terms of who's in them and the creatives we already knew. But when we're just discussing what we learned at the event, which is the release date, Tato, I'll start with you. What do you think of them trying to put 4 of these out in 1 month? Good or bad?
I will add on some because I didn't do very much research, but this is one thing I had heard and gotten into. I watched the Real Rejects talk about this, and the way they had presented it was that they're all coming out on the same day. And they're trying to bring the binge model to theaters. So the concept of possibly going to theaters and watching 4 Beatles movies back to back across a day would be absolutely bananas. And I think theater owners might dig that people will some people will just see one a day. Some people will jam all 4 of them in one day. And I think that would be really fantastic if that did go that way. So I don't know where their news and your news are conflicting, but that would be really dope. Either which way, the casting seems good. I like Barry Keoghan and shit. Barry Keoghan, as it were. I don't want to offend you, Aaron. And Paul Mescal for I don't really know the cat that well, but he seems like the casting for Paul McCartney seems to match up pretty solid. And yeah, that's basically my thoughts on it. I'm not the biggest Beatles guy. My take forever on the Beatles has been that they write fantastic music for other people to perform because, in my opinion, every song on Across the Universe is better than the Beatles original, and that's pretty common across any given Beatles song. All right, cheers.
Dan, thoughts on the release date? Good idea or bad?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I'd love to see all 4 movies in one day. Hopefully they're not like 2 hours a piece, maybe like $1.50 a piece. You maybe can jam in 6 hours of movies in one day. You know what I mean? But 4 2-hour movies, 8 hours of movies, all about the Beatles. And they're going to cross over into each other's movie. So it's not just going to be about one, going to be about Ringo, the other ones. They're going to cross over into each other's movies. So it's going to be like an anthology in a way. But I love the date. I love the casting. I cannot be happier for this. When I heard Sam Raimi was doing this about last year at some point, I was like, oh my God, please let this be good.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So with that said, we'll go ahead and move on from Sony Pictures. And just because I know in terms of runtime, there's a hard out at a certain point, I'm going to go ahead and bounce around. I'm going to go to Disney just because they're the big studio people like to talk about. So we'll jump to Disney next. And I'll start with Kevin on this one first. We had Lilo and Stitch, Freakier Friday, Tron Ares, Predator Badlands, obviously the Marvel films, the Pixar films, Avatar. What of these, if any, stood out to you that you want to bring up real quick?
Predator Badlands.
Go
I'm
ahead.
excited for this one, especially hearing out that they're doing a what if Predator was a good guy, which I'm like, I'm interested in this because I kind of been curious about that. I liked what they kind of did with the Predator and Alien for the Predator, where they kind of have a more interesting side. And I really want to know how they're going to do it because the closest thing I remember something like that was the arcade game Alien vs. Predator, where they actually did do where the Predator fully teams up with the humans, and that was the arcade. I know there are comics that did that as well, but I kind of want to see how they're going to pull this one up. And plus, I really like Prey. I'm really kind of curious about this.
Yeah, Dan Tato, any thoughts on Predator Badlands?
Yeah, let me tell you, Prey, wow, incredible. Setting the Predator up in World War I, in trench warfare between 2 opposing sides in the middle of that. That's what this is, right? Predator during World War I, in between 2 opposing sides. Is that what this is, Badlands? Am I wrong on this?
I believe it's meant to be a futuristic setting, but I can fact
never
check.
mind then. I thought there was a Predator set in No Man's Land. This between the 2 sides.
I think that might be the Hulu one, the animated one.
Oh, okay. Then I'm getting it confused. I apologize. Yeah, well, any Predator to me, I'm there for it because I did like Prey, and the original Predator. That's my generation. And Jesse Ventura, You know, I have No Time to Bleed and all those guys. I mean, I'm a massive Predator fan, so I'm looking forward to it. I got this confused. I thought it was set during
Okay, so
No Man's
yes.
Land.
So there were I can't find any particular details about the film, but what you are saying does sound familiar to me. So Dan Trachtenberg actually shot 2 Predator films back to back. One of them, which is called Predator, the tentative name that was given was Predator Killer of Killers. That is going to Hulu later this year. And then Badlands, which is which focuses on a predator as the main protagonist, is the one that's going to theaters in November.
Okay. So I just got my Predator movies. I got 2 Predator movies.
Yes. Yeah.
And I got them confused.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, so the one they focused on was the one going to theaters, but I'm sure we'll learn more about the other one first. Yeah.
Okay. I apologize on that, guys.
No, you're good. To be fair, when there are 2 Predator films in 1 year made by the same team, that is
how good. How lucky are we, right?
Yeah.
which, by the way, that concept as well also sounds incredible. I hope that's exactly what that other one is about.
Yeah.
Because that sounds like a hell of a concept. Yeah, I think the Predator being the protagonist, I think, is a really, really interesting idea. You know, there's I think that this is a good idea only because there is truly so much you can do with the Predator franchise. And I think the thing that Prey really nailed was you got to take it and you got to do something totally different. So, all right, we have a predator. It's a creature that hunts. So let's set it in the Civil War. Let's focus on a Comanche tribe. Is that the right term? Comanche tribe. Yeah. A Comanche tribe. You know, obviously we'll make the movie in English, but let's make a foreign language version of Predator. Like, let's do something just fucking wild with it and see what happens. And what happened is they made a great film. And so to then come at it again with, obviously they had 2 concepts, and Disney are so confident. They're like, F it, greenlight both. But with Badlands specifically, this idea of being set deep in the future, so we don't really know what Predator society is like at this point, and focusing on a predator who's traversing the universe by himself, coming across these 2 sisters, one of whom is Elle Fanning. Elle Fanning's a great actress. I think she's a great follow-up to Amber Midthunder to sort of take on a role in this franchise. Again, details are still slim compared to what we'll know come later in the year. I imagine if Disney does go to Comic-Con, they'll bring something to Comic-Con with this, because it'd be a great place to sort of present a first trailer. But I like it. And I like that release date as well. I like November, because it'll, you know, it's not quite on the holiday season. It's like right in between kind of Halloween and the Thanksgiving weekend. So you hope that it can open well and sort of carry that momentum into the holidays. I like where they've placed it.
Yeah, not to
Tato,
go real quick, not to go too much into it, Aaron, but rumor has there was a Predator samurai in the works too. Now,
possibly, yeah. I mean, if these 2 movies do well, the door is open for him to continue.
Yeah.
Tato, any thoughts on Predator Badlands before we move on?
I bought some weed gummies from Jesse Ventura once.
I love Jesse Ventura.
Yeah.
That's the truest statement made tonight.
Good job, Jake. Was he a really down to earth, cool dude though when you bought them gummies?
Yeah, we talked. It was shortly after Carl Weathers passed, and we talked about that for a bit. And
yeah. His autobiography is called "I Don't Have Time to Bleed" or whatever. It's "No Time to Bleed" or something like that. That's his autobiography. So if you go get that book, look for that title.
All right, Tato, then I'll turn it over to you, man. What in this set of films excites you the most? I can run it down again. You know, you have Lilo and Stitch, Freakier Friday,
I'm
Tron
actually
Ares.
looking at the list.
Okay, perfect. What do you want?
Yeah, I'll go Zootopia 2 here. I was a little late
Okay.
to the party on the first one, but it is fantastic. I got to it 2-3 years ago at this point, I think. So I'm excited for the sequel. Any more time I can spend with Nick Wilde and Judy Hopps is a good time. I'm almost positive. I didn't see anything on it, but I am excited for it.
Yeah, and of course we got a little more casting this weekend. So in addition to Jennifer Goodwin and Jason Bateman returning, we also now know that Shakira is returning to reprise her role as the pop star from the first film. They had previously announced that Ke Huy Quan had been added as the potential villain of the movie, or at least who's being set up as the villain. And now we also know that comedian Fortune Feimster and Abbott Elementary's Kinta Brunson are both a part of the cast. Now, how big a role any of these people will have, who knows? But frankly, that's a great, I mean, Shakira aside, because she's playing herself basically, that's a great amassing of comedic talent. I mean, obviously, Kinta Brunson is someone who's very popular, very on right now. You know, she's in Cat in the Hat, which we'll probably get to a little later. But I think that those are, if anything, if they're not big characters, what they will make are for great scenes. And that to me is what Zootopia really was. I think Zootopia had some great writing. I think it had two great characters at the center. But more than anything, even if the deeper themes of the film didn't work for you, it's just a series of really great vignettes and really great segments. Like you could break it up into a series of short films and show it to someone, and it would still get across as really entertaining. And I'd like to see that sort of apply again here. Obviously go for something deeper if you really want to, because I think they did a good job of it, but also just keep it funny. Dan, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I love the first Zootopia, and they got it in their prime slot of November, Thanksgiving weekend. So, they got a lot of confidence in Zootopia 2. It's been a long time coming. I've been waiting for this for a long time. I'm really excited for this movie. It's one of the few Disney movies in this year that I'm really just super excited for.
Yeah. Kevin, you haven't gone yet? No, you haven't gone. Any thoughts on Zootopia?
I am very excited for it. I love the first Utopia. I'm excited for the new voice cast. Best part of the release date is it's on, I think, November 26th, which is my birthday.
Yes.
So I'm glad that I can see that day, like on the Utopia 2. I can see it on my actual birthday, which could always help cheer me up.
My only gripe, much like Zoolander 2, totally dropped the title. Zootopia, Zootopia, come on.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, for anyone who's wondering, 10 years later, we're doing a Zootopia sequel. I mean, that was a cool movie and all, but 10 years later, we're doing a Zootopia. Need I remind you, Zootopia grossed $1.025 billion worldwide. That is why we are getting a Zootopia sequel. I'm sure they'll make a great film out of it too, but that is why we're getting a sequel. It made way more money than you'd probably assume it would have.
Dan, some of the stars are busy. Like Jason Bateman was really busy doing Ozark and some of that type of stuff,
Yeah. No, he's had a good few years, man. Over to you then, Dan. Anything from this Disney slate stand out to you want to bring up?
Yeah, just run it down again. To refresh my mind, and I'll tell you. I had something in my mind when you first said it, and now I forget.
So we have Lilo and Stitch, Freakier Friday, Tron Ares, The Amateur, which is coming out in a few weeks. Deliver Me from Nowhere, The Roses. We have Marvel, Pixar.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I've been kind of the two that you guys have already mentioned are kind of. I mean, the Marvel stuff is the Marvel stuff. I'm always excited for that. But
sure.
I would say The Amateur. I'm seeing it actually Monday, and I've watched that trailer multiple times, and I'm not the biggest Rami Malek fan.
after, especially with Bohemian Rhapsody, and then the one with him and Jared Leto and Denzel Washington. And I never watched Mr. Robot, but there's something about The Amateur that kind of piqued my interest, and I'm seeing it on Monday. So I'm kind of excited about that. But I'll tell you what, Disney this year really doesn't have a lot that's making me excited. But that's the one that does seem interesting to me.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I really liked that Amateur trailer. And I really like the concept of, like, because I think we are reaching a point with the spy genre and the action genre of, like, we do have to start finding new ways to invent it, at least until someone, because I think in the 2010s there was an overload of, like, Taken style action films, and I think now we are starting to reach a point where there's an overload of kind of John Wick style action films. And The Amateur, it seems like it's doing something totally different. I love the idea of, this is a guy who has no actual fight knowledge, but he has all the other knowledge that a Jason Bourne would carry, and then some. So, like, he's still dangerous, even if he can't, like, even if he can't kill a person, like, in the face with a gun, he can still be dangerous. But the director of the film, James Hawes, he did a film a couple of years ago, a really great drama called One Life, starring Anthony Hopkins. And it's one of these, every year I feel like there's one or two British dramas that are really, really excellent. And it's just because of distribution and release. They kind of get buried in the United States. And One Life is one of those where I would say, it was released by Bleecker Street, who, God bless them for trying to give distribution to films in America, but they just don't have the space to give big releases. And I thought the film was really, really good. Also has Helena Bonham Carter for people, more recognizable names in the film. It's a really, really great drama. And I am curious to see if someone who, in that film, at least to me, had a great handling of directing performances, can take that into something a little more high octane and still keep that realness and that gravitas while not losing it to the action. So I'm very curious about that. Either of you other guys have...
I couldn't have said it any better. That's a great way to talk about that. One Life. Oh, such a good movie.
It was a great movie. Either of you guys have thoughts on The Amateur coming out in next week? I think it's the 11th, I believe, is when it comes out. So very, very soon.
I'm curious, mostly because I've been getting so much trailer, so many times the trailer of it. I'm like, okay, I kind of want to see what's really about this movie. Love the idea, but it's one of those like, it's interesting. I'll wait for the reviews of it because, like, it can drop. Also comes out next week, which I'm really excited for that one. So I'll wait for the reviews. If it's above, I'll say the 50s. If it's above the 50s, then I'll get on the Rotten Tomatoes. I'll go pick that one to watch.
I'll just extend on your thoughts. This movie strikes me as a butt kiss. And if you've been in the movie trivia community for a while, a butt kiss is a question that is a fundamentally good movie trivia question, but it has been asked so many times. What is the name of Rocky Balboa's dog? That becomes commonplace. And this, to me, strikes me as the movie that makes this type of movie a butt kiss. This is like after John Wick, after Nobody, after this, like, this is the one where the genre gets oversaturated, kind of, as you said. So if this one goes, cool. If any of these genres go, but, like, the movie to me is no longer cool and unique. So it's kind of just like the movie has to stand on its own merits. I mean, like any movie does. But specifically because of the genre saturation.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, hey, real quick.
So,
I know this is good for Aaron. I don't know about you guys, but not an advertisement for AMC theaters. But Saturday, tomorrow, I believe at 7:00, there are sneak previews of The Amateur
If you guys want to go see it tomorrow, it's playing at AMC theaters at 7:00. I know that's close to Aaron. I don't know what Aaron's doing tomorrow at 7:00.
I'll be at work, but I already have plans to see it. So,
Okay.
but yeah, no, nationwide, it is screening at AMC's tomorrow at 7. If anybody wants to make their way to see it a little early. All right. So with Disney, I was gonna say like Marvel. I'm sure we're all excited, but we didn't really learn anything new. There's no kind of new thoughts about the films. Pixar, Elio. I don't know if anything they said really moves the needle. I'm sure it'll be fine. At the very least, I'm sure it'll be fine. Obviously Avatar 3, all that was really said about Avatar 3 was just the footage that got shown. Everyone said it was incredible. I don't really know if there's much to say that we don't already know about the film. The one that I want to talk about real quick before we move on, because to me, this is the type of interesting stuff that Disney collaborating with Searchlight, keeping Searchlight alive, really stands out, which is The Roses, which is a readaptation of the book The War of the Roses, which was famously made by Danny DeVito back in I want to say it was the early 90s, but I might be a little off on that.
Hey, Game of Thrones.
But so this is, again, for anyone who doesn't know, it's based on the book The War of the Roses, which essentially it focuses on a marriage between two people and how their picturesque family life just falls apart due to their own mutual self-destruction. But it's framed as a comedy. And I think, the Danny DeVito film is a very, very funny film. If you're into Danny DeVito's kind of fucked up sensibilities when it comes to being a director, I think it's right up your wheelhouse. If you love Matilda, The War of the Roses is kind of a grown-up version of that. But with this adaptation, we have Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman playing the leading couple, which is already great in and of itself because they're incredible dramatic actors. But then you look at the cast around them, which includes Kate McKinnon, Andy Samberg, Allison Janney, Doctor Who's Ncuti Gatwa, and there's many more after that. The idea of readapting this book through a modern lens, and specifically the way that they've cast this film with these two really great dramatic actors at the center of it, and then a team of true comedians around them to sort of, and to be fair, Andy Samberg can act. I think people really underrate his ability to actually perform. But then also the people who made it. So it's directed by Jay Roach, who's best known for his work on comedies, probably most famously Meet the Parents and the Austin Powers movies. And it's written by Tony McNamara, who wrote The Favorite and Poor Things for Yorgos Lanthimos. I think this is a great team to tackle this concept. And I'm really, really interested to see what comes of this. It comes out in August. I don't know if it will, but Jay Roach's Bombshell was kind of an outside Oscars film a couple of years ago. It didn't quite get in the mix, but it was one that was a part of the conversation. I think this is a real outside chance of being in the Oscars conversation if it's good enough, because it's got a lot of the right pieces, but it also has that intrigue that I think is becoming more of a thing with the Oscars. I think we're seeing within the Oscars that people are looking for something different. It's not just the same old traditional things over and over again. So I'm very curious about this one. I don't know if anyone else had any strong thoughts on this one prior to.
Well, I mean, I saw the original, and you had me at Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch as a feuding couple. You have me. I don't need to know anything about. I am not the biggest fan of remakes. It's like we're remaking everything, rebooting everything. But this seems like a new kind of twist on the War of the Roses that's going to be interesting. And you said that cast, oh my God, putting all them comedians around two great dramatic actors who have some comedic sensibilities. If you've watched a lot of their stuff over the years, they can do some comedic stuff. August is usually a dead month. So who knows? This could be something that could actually do good for, what is it, 20th century?
Yeah, Searchlight.
Yeah, Searchlight. So you could be right. You could have you might actually have all the pieces in place here to have a success, Aaron. I thought you could have put your finger on something here.
Yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts, or are we ready to move on?
I'm actually really excited for it. Actually, after when I saw like an image of what Disney was we're gonna talk about, I immediately looked up like the some of the smaller ones just to curious like what like uh it's those are quiet on the internet so I'm like I kind of look it up. Then when I saw the road check out the road stuff, like this one sounds like they could be one of my favorite because uh the favorites and poor thing also I realized I did an accidental pun on the when I said like it's the favorites
Mm.
but I like love the writers uh Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman as a kind of a married couple. I kind of want to see because like I think Benedict Cumberbatch is very fun, a really talented actor. I love Olivia Colman. She was the best, only one of two best things of Secret Invasion. But I'm really curious about this.
Absolutely. All right, man. So with that, we'll go ahead and keep pace, and we're gonna jump to another studio, and I'm gonna go ahead and jump to Paramount next, because Paramount had one of the possibly one of the buzziest things to come out of the event. And obviously, when I say that, I am talking about the upcoming reboot of the Smurfs franchise. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
Nobody
get
gives a
the
fuck
hell
about
out of here. You got me on that one, buddy.
No one cares about the Smurfs. That looks
No.
god
No.
awful. No, we're
And
talking about The Naked Gun, which also put out its first. It was a minute long, I think at most. It put out its first teaser. Um, I'm gonna jump first on this, and then I'll let you guys jump in because this was one that I think all three of you had kind of shown enthusiasm in when we were talking beforehand. Um, I remember years and years ago, this was discussed by MacFarlane and Seth MacFarlane and Liam Neeson when they were first working on that shitty Western film they did and Ted 2. And it was like they liked each other, they wanted to keep working together, and The Naked Gun was this thing that came up. And it just kind of never happened. And then, years and years and years later, it's like, okay, it is happening. Seth MacFarlane is still involved, but now he's just a producer. And instead, directing it is Akiva Schaffer of The Lonely Island, who is reteaming with his writers from Chippendale Rescue Rangers, who worked on the script for the film as well. And I believe that there, I don't know where the credits are accredited to, but I know Alex Sulkin, who co-wrote Ted with MacFarlane and was a writer on Family Guy for a long time, also contributed to the screenplay. They used a previous draft of his as the base for where they started writing the new movie. So I don't know if he'll end up under like additional material or if he'll get a story credit for the movie. But I think the creative team involved here is great. I like Seth MacFarlane. I wish he hadn't been so stuck on. I mean, The Orville is really good, but I wish he hadn't been so stuck on that for so long that it kind of limited his ability to make movies. But I even thought when he came back and did that 7-episode TED series, I thought that was a really fresh take on the concept. I think he can be funny. I don't think Family Guy is a reflection of him. He's not involved creatively anymore at this point. And I was excited to see him tackle this. If he's not going to do it, I don't think there's a better pick right now than Akiva Schaffer, who between Popstar and doing Chip and Dale has shown that this guy has a knack for parody. And he has a knack for taking something and inventing it in a way that makes it interesting, not just to those who are in on the joke, but everyone. And also, I think this works better now than if they had done it 10 years ago. Because Liam Neeson as an action star has derided so far that now it's like every 6 months we go, there's the latest. Like, I've seen almost all of those Liam Neeson films as a joke with my brother, where it's like, oh, the latest Neeson film is out. And then every once in a while you'll get like last year there was In the Land of Saints and Sinners, where it's like, holy shit, one of these is actually good. Like, that's a shock when one of them is actually good. So to put him in this role now, and very clearly, it's like obviously it's a sequel in a way to the original, but also they're parodying the Liam Neeson element of it very much just in that minute trailer and the action that they're doing. And also a little bit of John Wick, because now Neeson is on the even older side and they can sort of lean that way with it even further. I have a lot of faith in this. And also, I watched all the trailers and the stuff that's come out from CinemaCon, and we're going to talk about other stuff that had public trailer releases that were really, really good. Nothing gave me a bigger laugh than the idea that everyone in this movie is just the child of someone from the original film. And then the hard cut to OJ's son, just, nah. Brilliant. That's a great way to address it and just move on from it. And Paul Walter Hauser is in everything, and I'm sure he'll be great in this as well. Who wants to hop in first? Talk about Naked Gun, because again, it seemed like something.
I gotta go. Oh my God.
Go ahead.
I need to laugh, Aaron. I'm having some personal struggles right now. I needed to laugh like I never laughed before. And this made me laugh so hard. Oh my God. I'm not going to see another thing about this movie. I'll be honest with you. I was looking forward to, I wasn't really looking forward to this until I saw this trailer. Now I cannot wait to see this, but I don't want to see a single thing, anything else. This is all I need to see. I don't want to be spoiled. I don't want nobody to tell me nothing about this movie. I just want to have this in my memory of what I saw. And please, I hope this is just a little bit of what we're going to get in this movie. This is, oh my God, this looks brilliant.
Tato, any thoughts on it?
Yeah, this sounds good to me. I will continue to make the gripe of from when I first started to play trivia, Liam Neeson, Leslie Nielsen, and adding more confusion to those two actors from being in the same movie is not something I need, but I think I've gotten pretty good at distinguishing them at this point. So I should be able to handle my business on that front. I haven't seen the original. It's one of those big old blind spots that I have, which there are many, so I will eventually get to it because I know it's going to be something that I laugh my balls off at. It is also a thing where I've seen a lot of the clips, and I know the general gist of the story and stuff, so we'll see how much that impacts the overall enjoyment of the film when I get to it head to toe. But yes, this, I will agree with you that the timing seems more ripe now. The Kiva Schaefer of it all, who maybe we'll talk more about Sonic, but shout out to the security guard from Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Kiva Schaefer. And I did love, I love Chippendale and Popstar as well. So that guy
I was going to say,
awesome.
I was going to say, talking about Sonic and Kiva Schaefer, he also directed what might have been the funniest episode of Knuckles, which was the interpretive musical. That was all him. Which I thought that was very funny.
I haven't gotten to Knuckles yet. I got to get on that.
Oh, well, yeah, they're just, without saying the details, there's a whole episode that tells Knuckles' origin through interpretive musical. And let's just say, if you know anything about The Lonely Island, he calls on some old favors to make this work. And it really works. Kevin, what are your thoughts on Naked Gun?
It makes me even more excited than I originally was, because the Naked Gun movie, has been what I've been looking forward to, one of the comedies I've been looking forward to this year, because I love the Naked Gun films. I occasionally do often watch all three of them almost any time, especially even if they're on TV. I would just stay there and just watch them because they're so absurdly funny. And I know how much a fan Seth MacFarlane is with the Zucker brother films. He constantly references them on Family Guy, even in Ted. So I'm excited for this. I love Akiva Schaffer films. I do constantly watch Apostar as well. And I do often sometimes listen to songs from Popstar. Yeah. I really like the Chip and Dale movie, and I of course has seen enough of the Liam Neeson movies where I sat through Blacklight and the awfulness of that film.
He did do a Philip Marlowe remake, which Humphrey Bogart was in the original Philip Marlowe movie. God, I off the top of my head, but he did, and that was decent. He was good as Philip Marlowe. I thought Liam Neeson was, in a film noir. But
Yes, I remember. I think it was just called Marlowe.
Yeah,
there you go.
I did not fully watch it because because I was distracted with my phone watching WrestleMania, pick up my uncle put on Marlowe, and while I was mainly focused on fully watching WrestleMania that night. So so I've seen enough of Marlowe where I'm like, I'm like, it's interesting. I didn't hate it, but I'm really, I'm really glad seeing a noir film, especially if it's Liam Neeson doing a noir film.
Yeah, The Big Sleep. He did. Humphrey Bogart played Philip Marlowe in The Big Sleep, and then this is like a kind of a sister movie or brother movie. I don't know how you would call it, but it was really good. I actually thought he was decent as Philip Marlowe.
So then we'll go ahead and move on. One thing I do want to talk about, which I thought was really interesting with Paramount, is they're a studio that's never really prolifically been known for animation, but they had a lot of announcements about animation here. Some of these include they are producing I don't believe it's a sequel, but they are producing a second South Park film after all these years. They are working on a third Paw Patrol film, this time related to dinosaurs. There's, of course, The Legend of Aang, The Last Airbender, which will be the latest in the Avatar franchise. They've officially confirmed a sequel to TMNT Mutant Mayhem. They are working on a fourth SpongeBob film, which will be going theatrical, the SpongeBob movie, The Search for SquarePants. And all of these are coming within the next year or so. Now, I know we made fun of it earlier, but Smurfs is the first one of these. It's dated for July 18th, 2025. But then they gave dates at CinemaCon. SpongeBob is December, Avatar is January, Paw Patrol's next July, and TMNT is dated for October 2026. So over the next 18 months or so, they are clearly really going into their well of IP and using that to invest in animation, which I think is a really, really interesting move. I have no idea how it's going to pay off for them because I think they're definitely taking some risks with some of these in terms of box office potential. But I appreciate that they are making the effort. It's an interesting approach. Are there any of these projects, if you guys each want to pick a project, what stands out to you out of all of these the most? Tato, I'll start with you.
I'll jump in on Avatar since Secret Tunnel is mine and Jay's team name, and that is the origin of that. So I will throw it some love. I'm pretty geeked for that. It's not something that's been huge on my radar, but is definitely something I will go check out when it comes to theaters. And then I will also just throw out some love to Turtles because that first one was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we did learn this week from CinemaCon. Obviously, they have casted, I believe they've casted mostly just voice actors to replace the main cast of Avatar in their now adult forms. But we knew previously that Dave Bautista would be playing the villain of the film. We also learned this week that Stephen Yeun is a part of the cast of the movie. So certainly, I think they are... they're not necessarily relying on celebrity, but I think when they are putting people in there, they're making good picks. Dan, I'll let you jump in there since you were getting ready to go. Which of these animated projects stands out to you?
I will say Mick Foley was great in the Avatar show, so they have a history of wrestlers in Avatar.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Not a lot of these things are making me excited, but I love that TMNT from a couple years ago. Was there, not to go off on did they do any announcements for that? Wasn't there a standalone Raphael where he was supposed to be like a samurai or something like that? Or not?
You're thinking of The Last Ronin, and it's
Was there any announcements on that or anything about that?
As far as I'm aware, so they announced it at last year's CinemaCon. They announced that they were developing it. But as far as I'm aware, there have been no updates on it. I'll do a check real quick for you, though.
That to me would be, oh man, I cannot wait for that. And then obviously, I know I don't want to go off on a tangent, but Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I mean, we haven't got to that point. We're talking about animation, but come on, guys. But
All right, well, Kevin, I'll let you jump in on animation real quick, and then you can go to Mission Impossible.
Okay, what you say? Because I'm really excited for the next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle animated film. I really like the last one. Super excited for this one. That's all I can say because like after one, I'm like I'll say like I thought Avatar: The Last Airbender was okay for me, but then again that's because that's been it took me years to finally watch it, so I finally watched it on 2020. So I was like, okay, like it's good. So I'm like, I'll probably start the Paw Patrol. Well, it's more of like I'm happy that my young nephews and probably eventually my niece will get to watch those films. So I'm excited to hear the stories from my cousins and their children about it. And Smurfs, it's Smurfs. It's yeah. I'm more of a Snorks fan.
And by the way, to jump in, Dan, I'll let you go ahead and go in on Mission Impossible. But so there was no update this year on The Last Ronin. But between last CinemaCon and now, it was confirmed that writer Tyler Burton Smith, who's best known for his work on the films Child's Play, the remake, and Boy Kills World. He also helped write the most recent Alan Wake video game. He is the one that is working on the script for this. So they are in development on it, but there's no actual point they've reached in terms of moving forward.
Okay, that's too. I'm looking forward to that. That looks really good. That sounds like a great concept. So that's why I was curious about that, because I didn't hear about everything that was going on at CinemaCon, so I didn't know if they mentioned that or not. Now, come on, guys, are we excited for the Final Reckoning or what? I mean, look,
yes.
I'm not watching anything else. I watched that one trailer. That's all I'm gonna see the movie. I'm not going to watch another thing. You know, it was going to be in the submarine. You know, he's going to go underwater to get the key and all that kind of stuff. So you know where it's going to start off more than likely. But we've seen some of these stunts, and he supposedly showed a stunt at CinemaCon. I didn't know what stunt he showed, but rumor has it he actually showed a stunt at CinemaCon. Another stunt, not him hanging off the side of a plane. Come on now, it's like Tom Cruise, the real life Superman, guys. I mean, I don't want to transition into Superman, but is Tom Cruise our real life Superman nowadays, or what?
Possibly.
I know. Come on, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen. This is another, like I said, big hole of mine. I haven't seen any of these, but by all accounts, his Tom Cruise's stunt work is legendary, and his yelling at people for being fucking idiots is also legendary, and that one I really appreciated when we needed it. So,
good point.
Kevin, do you have any thoughts on Mission Impossible?
Very excited for this one. I'm more curious about to see what crazy stunts he does and what stunts I'm going to see in theaters, like with the preview about it. So I've been very excited for it. I've really been loving these last few Mission Impossible films.
Did you happen to hear what the stunt was, Aaron? That he showed to CinemaCon crowd?
Yes. So it's they showed footage of the biplane stunt, but nothing that we hadn't already seen before. Okay. And then he jumped off the side of an aircraft carrier into the ocean.
Live on screen at that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I knew there was something.
Christ.
And again, they haven't shown us it, but the conclusion that the internet has come to is that with the biplane, the stunt that will be performed is because if you pay attention to the footage in the trailer, in some shots the biplane is red, in some shots it's blue. The belief is that there are actually 2 biplanes in that scene, and he will jump from one to the other.
Oh my God.
Which you would assume was done live with as minimal restraint as possible, because if Tom Cruise is anything, he's a walking insurance nightmare. But with that said, I think the film is going to be great. I have no doubt about that. I only watched all the Mission Impossible films right before 7 came out. I had never seen any of them prior to that. So I don't think I have the hype of like, this is 30 years in the making, this is possibly the final one. I don't have that hype going into it, but I am prepared to be incredibly, incredibly impressed. And I think if this movie is as good as it can be, and Lilo and Stitch looks as good as it can be, this might be one of the best weekends of the year in terms of releases coming out, because they both have a really high ceiling for potential. The only thing I'll say in terms of the trailers, I'm really terrified of how this film will perform at the box office, because the last one didn't do very well. And I know that people will say like, oh, well, it got eaten up by Barbenheimer. But I also thought the trailers for the last one weren't really good. I think they went too far in the direction of vague, ominous shots and vague, ominous voiceover. And the trailers for the Final Reckoning have been better, but I think they're still very much that same thing of vague, ominous shots with vague, ominous dialogue. And I'm just concerned that it's not going to do enough to sell people. Like, compared to when you think like the marketing for Top Gun Maverick, where that sold people who may not have even seen the original Top Gun on the story and the character you're connecting to. This does feel very much like a cold marketing approach. And I'm worried that it won't draw enough people in, because these movies are excellent, and these movies are also insanely expensive for a very legitimate reason, because Tom Cruise handled as a producer COVID correctly and delayed production and paid people and did the best he could to keep it together. And I just don't want to see them get punished for that, because that would really suck.
No.
And it only encourages people to not handle future things correctly.
Yeah. I think though, if they would have bumped it a week to 4th of July weekend instead of the week, like, they might have been better. The last one would have
possibly
did
yes.
But hey, obviously it's over with now. I can't do anything about it. But yeah, come on, guys. Are we excited? We got to be excited about this, boy. I mean, this is, oh God, this is why we go to the movies. This stuff like this, right?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, and I know some footage from CinemaCon gets released. I don't know how much of the like stage stuff is ever out there publicly on the internet, unless people recorded it. But apparently Tom Cruise did give a very touching tribute to Val Kilmer on stage. Obviously, both him and Chris McQuarrie worked with Kilmer on Top Gun Maverick. So he gave apparently a very touching speech and tribute to him before they started their presentation. Like I said, I'm not sure if it's actually out there to go watch, but if it is, go check it out. I have a couple of smaller ones here before we go ahead and move on. Obviously, there's some franchise stuff they talked about. Sonic the Hedgehog 4, not much to say, just it is getting made. Scream 7, they didn't really say very much because they're trying to keep it a secret, but we do know that it's coming in the next year. But the ones I want to talk about are some of the smaller projects. The first one that we have is Regretting You, which is, I believe it'll be the second book to receive an adaptation from author Colleen Hoover, who of course wrote It Ends With Us, which went on to become incredibly controversial last year for reasons that have nothing to do with the perfectly mediocre movie. But this one is directed by Josh Boone, and I believe this is the first time he's been in the director's chair since New Mutants a few years ago. So this is sort of him coming back to directing. And the film stars Allison Williams, Dave Franco, McKenna Grace, Mason Thames, and Scott Eastwood, and apparently Clancy Brown. I had not seen that before, but Clancy Brown's in the cast. I don't know if like romance dramas move the needle for you guys at all, but I am just very curious to see this, only because this author was, my sister is a reader, which I'm glad for her, because there's not a lot of them at her age, but she's a great reader. And this author, Colleen Hoover, was somebody who very much captured the attention of people. And I thought It Ends With Us was fine. I think some things about it were done really well. I think certain things about it weren't. I'm also very openly not a big fan of Blake Lively as an actress. I just think she's always been very wooden. There's very few roles that work for me with her.
The Town.
So yeah, she's good in The Town, but she's also not in it very much. So it's like she doesn't. So I like this cast a lot more. Allison Williams, Dave Franco, McKenna Grace is obviously very talented. I like this group of actors more, and I'm very curious to see if this is pulled off a bit better. Because if it is, then I think, and also if it makes the same amount of money that It Ends With Us does, now you have a pool opening of, okay, this author could be the ticket to success if you can do it right. The other ones I'll throw out there real quick, and then you guys can talk about whatever interests you of these. There is a crime film coming out next October called Roofman, that is directed by Derek Cianfrance, who did Blue Valentine and The Place Beyond the Pines. And it's based on a true story of a U.S. Army Reserve officer who would break in to McDonald's and steal exclusively from McDonald's by entering the roof of the restaurant, and evaded capture by hiding out in an abandoned Toys R Us store. And this is the story of this guy. Channing Tatum plays the criminal, and the cast includes Kirsten Dunst, Ben Mendelsohn, Peter Dinklage, and Lakeith Stanfield. I think that's a really interesting premise. And then, Tato, I think you were on the show where we talked about 2024 films before. I'm personally very high on the potential of The Running Man. I think Edgar Wright and Glenn Powell are two people who are very hot in Hollywood. I don't think Edgar Wright's really put a foot out of place. I don't think Glenn Powell's made any mistakes since he started getting the heat on his side. I think taking a book that had a good film adaptation, but potential to do better, I think was a great move. And I like this cast as well. Now, before we go into any of those, I know we are coming up time-wise on a hard out here. So, Tato or Kevin, I'll go back to you guys in a second if you have anything you want to say about these films. But we're going to go to Warner next. And Dan, I want to give you the chance before I have to head out here to talk about Superman, because I know that was obviously a big one for everyone. So I'll come back to you guys if you have thoughts on those other films real quick. But Dan, if you want to talk about Superman, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're doing this whole thing where they're showing the dog, Crypto, like in all this marketing stuff. Like they're specifically showing Crypto the dog in all this marketing and the trailers and stuff like that. And it's like they don't want to show you anything else, but they want you to get lost in the fact that there's a super dog in this movie and he's cool and he's going to have a big part in this movie. And it's James Gunn. He's doing something different because we all want to forget the Crypto, the dog played by Kevin Hart or whoever the heck voiced him in that animated
Dwayne.
DC super. Who was it?
It was Dwayne.
Dwayne Johnson? Oh, Dwayne Johnson.
Yes.
Jesus. That's right. Oh, God. That's okay. We don't want to remember that. But this dog could be like a memorable movie animal in the future. We could be like thinking about the great movie animals, and it could be Crypto the super dog, because they really are putting a lot of onus on this. And that trailer really made me interested to see how this dog plays into the story of Superman. I mean, obviously I like the cast, I mean, it's James Gunn. I'm not the biggest fan of everything that James Gunn has done over his career, but lately he's been doing some good things, and I really liked what he's done. So isn't that a weekend apart from Fantastic Four, or the same, right? Like
So it's in July. It's Jurassic World is the first week, and then I believe it's not that it's going to do anything, but Smurfs is the weekend after, and then it's Superman, and then it's Fantastic Four.
Oh wow. What a run. What a back-to-back Superman and FF in this within a week of each other. And I'll probably get press screenings of both of them. So might see them back-to-back days or maybe a couple days apart. So I'm really excited about that. But Yeah, I mean, James Gunn doing Superman. How can you not be excited about this?
Yeah, it's it'll be. Oh, I apologize. I had it backwards. So it's Jurassic World, then Superman, then Smurfs, then Fantastic Four. So the 2 week gap is between Superman and Fantastic Four, which is
That's
probably
smart.
safer for everyone.
Yeah, because no one's gonna go to Smurfs.
All right, man. Well, first off, Dan, thank you for joining us, man. Would love to have you back on another week where we don't have the time constraint afterwards. But unfortunately, he does have to head out to a prior commitment. Where can people find you real quick?
You can find me at fromthefourthrow.com, where I'm the owner, editor-in-chief, and head film critic for fromthefourthrow.com. I got all kinds of reviews on there. I got tons of TV shows coming. I got Last of Us weekly capsule reviews on the way every week. I got an entire series review of Andor season 2 coming in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. But there's tons of movies. I'm covering 3 film festivals in the next couple of weeks. I'm just slammed. I'm inundated with movies. So if there's something you're interested in hearing about, I'm sure I'll have either seen it or one of my writers will have seen it. And you can find me at Dan Skip Allen on Facebook, X/Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, Letterbox, or DP Skip Allen, or any variation of that. Also, we're on hiatus right now, but Real Consideration is my awards podcast with my co-host Luis Mendez. We'll be back in July or August because we're taking a time off. Award season is a marathon. It's a long ass season, and to do a podcast every week is really exhausting. So we're taking some time off from that. So you can see us back in September, October, August, August for Real Consideration. But yeah, I'm on Movie Hero Network right now, coming up after I get off the air with you guys. The greatest TV shows of all time, voted on by the people that are on the panel.
All right, well, go have some fun. We will see you next time, sir. Take care.
Thanks a lot,
go
guys.
ahead. Absolutely. We'll go ahead then and move the show on real quick. Did you guys have any interest in doubling back over those Paramount films, or do you want to get on to Superman?
What do we have here? Let me double check. Yeah, Sonic 4, cool. South Park, cool. Scream 7, cool. And I will echo your thoughts on the Roof Man and the Running Man. I think Running Man is fun with Arnie, but like getting a real movie version with Glenn Powell should be dope. And that Roof Man story seems super fun. I hadn't heard anything like about that at all, so I'm in on that. And Channing Tatum is also awesome.
Yeah. Derek Sanfrance has directed actors to Academy nominations before. I'm not saying this movie will necessarily be that, but I am curious to see what he does working with Channing Tatum. All right, so with that said, then Kevin, unless you want to double back on any of those films as well, I'll throw it to you for Superman if you want to.
Okay, so before that, I'll go into a few of those. Sonic, okay, I've been just fine with the Sonic films. Okay, Scream 7. I'm just curious what they're going to do with this. Just curious. After the whole drama situations, and now with the casting news, I'm curious to see what it's really going to be about. The Roofman, I'm interested. I love Blue Valentine. The story, sounds interesting. I'm curious about what kind of film is this going to be. Running Man. I love the Arnold Schwarzenegger Running Man so much. I always listen to the end credits music so much. It's just so catchy, and I'm curious about the actual book adaptation, and because I love Edgar Wright, I'm amazed by Glenn Powell. This is one I'm very interested in.
About
Now
weed
Superman.
gummies from Jesse Ventura once.
Yeah.
That's what
it applies twice.
And now Superman. It makes me more excited. When I saw Microphone and IMAX, they showed this. the Superman clip, I laughed so hard because like I'm around dogs a lot. Like I have a small Yorkie, and I often spend time taking care of my brother's dogs. He has 2 dogs, and one of them is Golden Doodle, who also kind of acts like that, like Crypto did in the trailer. So I'm like, yeah, that's how most dogs are. And seeing Crypto, especially a natural in live action, it warms my heart. And during the small segments of it, I did got teary eye of excitement. So I'm really loving this. I can't wait to see this in theaters. I really am loving the Superman, uh, all the info we were getting, and because I love the Guardians series from James Gunn. I like the actor that's playing a Superman. He did a film last year called The Greatest Hits on Hulu. But I love the Hulu film, The Greatest Hits. It was my 10th film of the year. I'm I'm even so glad I've been playing Superman.
Yeah, Tato, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm James Gunn has earned all the credit in the world for doing comic book movies. I'm not the biggest Superman cat in general, but I absolutely, James Gunn is the guy I want telling that story, especially with how much he wants to tell the story, seemingly. Cast seems awesome. I had always been on Nick Holt for Lex Luthor from the get-go, so that one is dope. And full on penis head Guy Gardner, Nathan Fillion. Big thumbs up from me. So I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, I like the footage that we got. I like that they are using the marketing to expound on what we've seen and not give too much away. Like I've heard that at CinemaCon they got about 10 minutes worth of footage, and apparently a good chunk of it was just even more of that scene that was put into the extended look with Crypto at the Fortress of Solitude. And they did show certain other things were a little extended. But for the most part, what we saw in the public was just a truncated version of what got played at CinemaCon. I like what we've seen so far. The thing about that struck me with the Crypto thing is, and this is one of the biggest issues with Superman as a character, and specifically the Man of Steel one. There's nothing about him that's ever felt relatable, because he is superhuman, right? Obviously, Superman's a great character for you to analyze and discuss like moral quandaries with, but there's very little that makes him relatable as a character. And despite the fact that I think Christopher Reeve gave a great performance, and I think Henry Cavill gave a genuinely great performance, and I even like Brandon Routh in Superman Returns. I think he gives a good performance. It's always in the actor. I've never thought there's anything about the writing of the character that makes him easy to relate to or easy to understand. And I realize that people may not vibe with James Gunn's comedic approach to it, and maybe that's fair or unfair. We'll see when the film comes out. But Crypto being just this lovable puppy that wants to play and is bouncing around Superman like any dog would, but Superman's just had his ass kicked and Crypto's breaking collarbones every time he jumps on his neck, is like, that's a way to make it relatable. Because I think we can all relate to that feeling of an energetic dog kind of jumping up at you. Imagine if that dog had the capacity to kill you and you just also happen to be strong enough to survive it. I think it's a really, really great way to sort of just connect to the character in a way that no film has ever quite got across. I do wonder if the marketing is Crypto heavy and the film won't be as much. I'm curious as to how much of a role Crypto actually has in the movie. Maybe this is just a tactic to relate to the character easily in the marketing, and in the film it's a lot of what we've seen. I'm curious to see how that plays out. But I like the approach because it's distracting from the things that they could start to spoil very quickly. And I do want to address real quick before we jump into it. Speaking of spoilers, I'm going to be as vague about this as possible. There was a Redditor this week, Viewer Anon is the guy's name, who is one of those like industry scoopers, so to speak, right? Similar to Daniel RPK. And basically the genesis of what happened was Viewer Anon purportedly saw a screening of Superman, one of the test screenings that they're doing, and was challenged by someone on Reddit over the validity of him having seen the film. And his response was to give away a major spoiler and cameo within the film. Now, people that I talk to who know things, that information tracks. And it is, I mean, unless something gets cut from the film, it is very true. So just be careful when you're going on the deep recesses of the internet and looking up information, because things that James Gunn does not want to be public are very possibly public now at this point. And nobody wants to, I say this as someone who doesn't care about spoilers. It doesn't bother me that I know something that's potentially in the film. There are a lot of people who do care. So I'm saying this just to be careful when looking up the film, because there is stuff out there that could be considered a spoiler. With that said, though, I do think it looks good. Outside of that, though, frankly, nothing from DC really stood out to me all that much. I thought the PTA trailer looked solid, one battle after another, but that did come out a couple of weeks ago. We didn't really learn anything new about the movie. But to me, in terms of presentation, the thing that stood out the most was actually, funny enough, the animated Cat in the Hat movie, which was a movie that before this last week, I don't think I could have ever said that I cared about it. I lost my train of thought. I couldn't have ever said that I cared about this upcoming Cat in the Hat film. It's one of those movies where you just kind of go, all right, sure, we're going to do another Cat in the Hat. Why not? But the presentation at CinemaCon apparently went over very, very well. And they had some of the cast there. The film's cast includes Bill Hader, who is playing the cat. Also other cast members we talked about it earlier. Quinta Brunson is in this movie. SNL's Bowen Yang is in this movie, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness's Xochitl Gomez is a part of the film as well. And apparently this was one of the presentations, whatever they showed went over really, really well with people in the room. The director of the film is a guy named Alessandro Carloni, who has a background in working for DreamWorks Animation. His highest achievement there was being co-director of Kung Fu Panda 3, which was a solid film. So I'm very curious to see how this movie turns out, now that we sort of know that it is coming. It's coming February 2026, and it went over really well with people in the room. And they also confirmed that it's apparently the first in which, talk about a studio putting the cart ahead of the horse, but it is the first of a potential Seussiverse, where Warner has the rights and plans to want to adapt more films based on works by Dr. Seuss. So obviously, in terms of comments, like, nothing from the film has been released publicly. You're just going off of what I've said, of what I've read. But do you guys have any interest in a new adaptation of Cat in the Hat?
Stop me if you've heard this one before. An Asian actor, an MCU actor, and Quinta Brunson walk into an animated movie. No other thoughts beyond that.
Fair enough. Kevin?
Yes. Mostly because I really am happy we're seeing an animated animated Cat in the Hat, because I feel like the Dr. Seuss stories actually I feel like make more sense better for animation than live action. Good. Most of all, I think I'm impressed by the makeup of the Grinch, but let's just say, come on, the Whoville's look really weird. as live actions. And then there's Cat in the Hat with Mike Myers. We know, like, we regret it. We still regret it. But I'm happy to, but I am really excited, kind of be curious about this one. Though, though the one thing is, it's Warner Brothers in animation. I have no faith of their confidence with their animated films. I am, and once we get to talk about the other animated films they're thinking of, they announced, I'm I don't have much faith with them.
Okay. Yeah, fair. I think they've been the Lego movie films are probably the most consistent they've been. Since then, I'd say it's been very inconsistent. So we will see. In terms of the list of films here, I mean, I don't know if you guys have any hype for F1. Obviously, it's the reteaming of Kaczynski and Bruckheimer, who did do Top Gun Maverick. So obviously there's a curiosity to if that one will turn out. But the last Warner film that I really want to focus on here is Weapons. And this is in relation to, obviously, we talked about Resident Evil. Zach Kreger, who's directing that film, has a film set to come out this year that he wrote, directed, and produced. And what's interesting about this script is apparently even before Kreger made Barbarians a few years ago, this was a script that he had written that a lot of personalities and pundits in the industry have had the opportunity to read. Like, this was not something he was keeping a secret. And across the board, the reviews have been very positive of the script. Warner, after he made Barbarian, signed him to a deal that included him getting approval of final cut for the movie, because he wanted the movie to stay as true to the script that he wrote as possible. And the premise of this movie, it is a horror film, and it is centered around a group of school kids who all share a teacher in a small Florida community who, without warning and without explanation, go missing overnight. And it's basically the community's reaction to the disappearance of these kids and what happened. The ensemble of the film includes Josh Brolin, Alden Ehrenreich, Benedict Wong, and Julia Garner, who is, of course, in the upcoming Fantastic Four film. The movie also has Austin Abrams, who's been cast as the lead of Kreger's upcoming Resident Evil movie. So, yeah, and he's been in other stuff before. I've liked him in the things I've seen him in. So
He was from Do Revenge, right?
that sounds correct. I can fact check that.
Yeah,
but
I think that's that kid. He was good in that flick.
He was, yes. Yeah, he was. So I've heard nothing but great things about this script for years. So I'm glad the movie is finally coming out. Warner are very confident in it because it was supposed to come out January of next year, and they've bumped it up to August of this year. So clearly they are confident in its ability to succeed. And I also am kind of excited for this because I think it's going to give us our because it's a small town sort of feel. I think this is really going to give us our first look at what the new Resident Evil will look like, because I don't imagine Kreger is going to make something anywhere similar to the bombastic Paul W.S. Anderson films. I think it's going to be a very different approach. So what are your guys' thoughts on this one?
Yeah, like I said, sign me up for Kreger. I'm not a huge horror cat, so I haven't gotten to Barbarians yet. But between the video game and the Kreger Resident Evil will definitely get me. This story definitely piques my curiosity.
Absolutely. Any thoughts from you, Kevin?
Pretty much, I love Barbarian. I've not seen Companion yet. It's been one I sadly missed out on. But I'm curious about Weapons, and I can't wait to check that one out.
Yeah, absolutely. So where was
I
I? As
will
we
throw
come,
out, if we're moving
Go
on
ahead.
from Warner here, Mortal Kombat 2 does look decent. I don't know if anything else came out, but the recent, like a couple weeks ago, they dropped some pictures, and
Yes.
I've been a big proponent of Carl Urban as Johnny Cage, and the picture that they dropped just increases my thoughts of that. My opinion is valid. He should knock this role out of the park.
Yeah, absolutely. So we still have a couple of studios left, but as we come up on the 2 hour mark here, what we're going to do is we're going to close the show out by, I'm going to throw out one or two more big movies kind of from miscellaneous over the studios. And then what we're going to do is, since this week we have the space for an After Dark companion episode to the show, I'm going to come back on probably by myself, although if you guys would like to hang around, you can. And I'm going to quickly run through just a bunch of the stuff that's left and briefly talk about it so we can move on. But with that said, we'll go ahead here. I'll throw out a couple of big films that were left. The first one I'll start with from Universal, How to Train Your Dragon. It was the only film that screened in full at CinemaCon this year. It went over incredibly well with the audience that was there. And on the heels of its screening, ahead of the movie's release, the studio confirmed they've already begun development on the live action sequel, How to Train Your Dragon 2, which is set for June 2027. In the same way that Sony not addressing Until Dawn in any detail is a red flag warning sign, is this something that motivates you to feel more excited? The fact that they're already moving on a sequel?
It doesn't strike me as a bad sign.
It strikes me as they're really confident with How to Train Your Dragon live action ones. It's definitely they're really confident.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll stick with Universal just one more time because they had a couple of horror films that really caught some heat there. Of course, they put out two trailers, one for Megan 2.0 and one for Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 looks like more of the exact same. Except with McKenna Grace added this time. The Black Phone 2 didn't have any footage released, but they did confirm that star Mason Thames, Madeline McGraw, and Ethan Hawke are all reprising their roles. So it's not some sort of disconnected sequel. It is a proper sequel to the first film. And then Megan 2.0, interestingly, the trailer shows that it's kind of taking the T2 route, where it seems as though Megan is being rebooted and revived after Megan's technology is stolen and cloned into an evil version of the character, and Megan is now being revived as the hero of the story, seemingly leaning more into the sci-fi action element of the film than the horror element, although that does remain to be seen. Do any of these three stand out to you guys? I don't know where you stand on horror, but do any of these stand out to you?
Yes. Mega 2.0 looked to be more crazy than the first one. And I'm fully excited for it. I love the trailer. I laughed so hard on that one. Finds Afraid 2. I hated for the first one. Then again, I wasn't a fan. It was made for me, and to the fans, the people that liked it, that was made for them. I'm happy for you. I don't care. I did not care for the first one. And the Black Phone 2. I'm excited for it. I'm wondering how it's going to turn out. How it works, but I'm fully confident in C. Robert Cargill and Scott Derrickson. They are a great team.
Yeah. Tato, any thoughts on those?
No.
Fair enough. All right, let me throw something else at you then. We'll go to the highlights from Amazon MGM real quick here. They didn't have too many big things. Amazon MGM certainly seems to be focusing for the moment on some smaller pictures. But we did get a little bit from Project Hail Mary, which is a big sci-fi film coming out next March. The film is being written by Drew Goddard, who previously wrote The Martian, and is being directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. It's their return to live-action filmmaking, the first since they shot Solo, with Ryan Gosling being our star, playing a sole surviving astronaut on a mission to save humanity. With that said, guys, does this move the needle for you guys at all, a sci-fi film from Lord and Miller?
Yes.
All right. And then we'll go to the other one that Amazon had, because they didn't really talk about James Bond, which does make sense. They don't really have much going there. But we have the Masters of the Universe film coming out, which is coming from Travis Knight, the director of Bumblebee. It's being written by Chris Butler, who is one of his lead writers at Laika. That's where those two come from. And we didn't really learn much about the film publicly. There wasn't a lot of footage released. But we do know that the film, aside from that creative team, it stars Nicholas Galitzine as Prince Adam. The premise of the film being a 10-year-old Prince Adam crash lands on Earth, separating him in the process from the Sword of Grayskull. 2 decades later, he is reunited with his sword and has to leave the life he developed behind to take on the mantle of He-Man to battle for Eternia. Jared Leto has been cast as Skeletor, and the likes of Alison Brie, Idris Elba, and Morena Baccarin are playing the various characters populated throughout this universe. I know nothing about Masters of the Universe, but I fucking love Travis Knight as a director, so I will trust him with whatever the fuck he wants to do. Do either of you know more about Masters of the Universe than me?
I can't imagine a beloved director taking on Masters of the Universe as a project and getting shit on all over for it. I'm just joking. That's the thing that happened to me. Hey, got there. Yeah, I don't really know the story. I did watch like the first chunk of the Kevin Smith stuff because fucking Kevin Smith.
Oh God, that's right. He did do. Oh, I completely missed what you were going for there. Okay, I was like, wow, there's some. That's right. He did the Netflix thing, didn't he?
Yeah, which I enjoyed well enough, but I also like the fucking Masters of the Universe is not religion to me or anything, so
Sure.
I don't know how much he messed it up according to those fans or how much of them just kind of fucking rag on Kevin Smith for being Kevin Smith. But for me, the Masters of the Universe show I saw was cool enough. Like I said, I didn't super have it in my childhood or anything. I don't have a frame of reference to compare it to, but yeah, I hope, hopefully old Trav Knight doesn't get the same heck that Kev Smith did.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin?
Interesting. Love Travis Knight. Of course, I really like Bumblebee and Kubo and the Two Strings. Match of the He-Man. I've only saw the pilot, the first episode of the Netflix one, mostly because like most things, I watch it, I like it, I forget to watch it and watch the other episode because I get distracted with other things. And I actually remember seeing a few episodes of the Cartoon Network reboot of it. So I'm actually kind of interested in this one.
Live action?
All right. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. It is obviously, I referenced Laika. It is a team that work mostly for an animated studio, but this is a live action film.
Okay.
Yeah, and it is worth noting he chose to go uncredited, but Chris Butler did also contribute to the Bumblebee screenplay. But it was while they were shooting, so he chose to take his name off of it. So certainly he has had a hand. these two have worked together in tandem multiple times already. They did Kubo and the Two Strings together. Chris Butler, as a writer-director, also did Paranorman and Missing Link. So these two are the core DNA of what Leica is. And I'm very, very excited to see their branching out into something else again. Also, if their fantasy film coming out this year, Wildwood, turns out great, that's even more reason to be excited for this movie. So yeah, and then the last film that we'll touch on before we go ahead and close out this episode is we'll go to John Wick. Obviously, John Wick, we know that Ballerina is coming in June. They put out a new trailer for it recently. They also showed some footage at CinemaCon. One thing that I thought was interesting was the trailers have kind of been very misleading about what the story of this movie is. And apparently the footage they showed at CinemaCon very directly and explicitly sort of explained what the flow of this movie is supposed to be. I'm not going to go into any more detail for it because I don't want to spoil it for anyone who wants to keep that a surprise for them. But it is out there if you want to sort of piece the trailers together and get a sense for what the story of the film really is. But in addition to that, they also confirmed this week that the animated John Wick prequel is moving forward, which will be an anime adaptation of the John Wick as the Baba Yaga prior to the first film. They will be working on the Kane spinoff, focusing on Donnie Yen's character from the fourth film, of which Donnie Yen will also be directing, and that'll be following up on the post-credit scene. And John Wick 5 is apparently moving forward with Keanu Reeves and Chad Stahelski. On an unrelated note, I would imagine that kills Chad Stahelski's attachment to Blade. The man literally has 12 projects in development. I don't know how on earth he has the time to do all of this, but you'd assume that John Wick 5 will get going sooner rather than later. With that said,
it's not
though,
like
guys,
Blade's been too delayed or anything. We can push it back.
Yeah, what's one more year, right? What are your guys' thoughts on John Wick to close out the show?
I haven't gotten to 4 yet, but I'm a fan of the franchise, so it all sounds good to me. And I like Donnie Yen enough, so despite not having seen the film, I will give that a thumbs up.
He's great in the fourth one.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, Kevin?
So the whole pretty much when we were discussing this, about what we want to talk about, pretty much we were discussing. I talked about it as the whole John Wick universe, because because especially with Ballerina kind of attached himself, I think to as kind of a prequel in the John Wick films. So I'm curious about that one, especially because it's Len Wiseman, who directed a few of the Underworld films and Total Recall remake. And that's where I like with an action director, so it's one of those interesting ideas, especially hearing rumors that there may have been they've done some reshoots of the film with
yes, and that's not rumored at this point. It is pretty well known that there were reshoots, and Stahelski was on set with Len Wiseman while they were doing it. Essentially, the belief is that essentially this film is a co-direction because enough of it was reshot that Stahelski's influence, specifically on the action. Apparently, the narrative part of it, there wasn't an issue, but Stahelski sort of helped Weissman figure the action part of it out after the fact.
Yeah, that the Donnie Yen one I'm really excited for. It took me years. It took me a bit long for it that I finally watched the actual post-credit scene because I eventually bought the Blu-ray. So I'm curious about that one. The anime one makes perfect sense. When there was discussion of them doing a prequel, I'm like, I don't want to see it. I don't think it will work. I feel like you will lose the mystery of it. But then when they say anime, it was going to be an anime one. I'm like, now that actually could fit perfectly as it, and if maybe you could treat it as more of a legend of what happened. If
Mm.
you could have someone like E Machine actually tell it like that. Now, jumping to chapter 5, Aaron, I think we were discussing years ago. I think after John Wick Chapter 4 came out,
Yep.
we did a whole discussion about it, and that's where I kind of feel like, without spoiling for Tato, or any people that did not see John Wick Chapter 4, I kind of making me curious about, like, I feel like some of what we said about it. I'm like thinking they're gonna go that route.
Yeah, I like everything that was announced here. Oh, okay, everything's maybe getting ahead of it a little bit.
Enough of this, guys.
Yeah, I like most of what was announced here. Um, I think that I want to phrase it correctly. I think the Donnie Yen thing will be cool. I do still have faith in Ballerina to succeed, and I like Ana de Arma as an action lead. I think that this will be an enhancement on what she did with Bond, and I think that'll be good for her. I do like the animated thing in relation to who's in charge of it. Because the director of the film, I wanted to make sure I looked his name up. The director of the film is an animator by the name of Shannon Tyndall, and his background in animation is actually in character design. He was one of the original supervising animators for Foster's Home of Imaginary Friends. So all the designs within that show, he had a helping hand in. And then in film, he went on to be a part of, he worked for Leica for a little bit. He helped with Coraline. He also helped with Kubo and the Two Strings. He actually helped write the screenplay for Kubo and the Two Strings as well. And then as a director, he went on to work on the Ultraman film, which was released to Netflix last year. So, and I've not seen that one personally, but I heard good things about it. So I really like the background of this guy, and I think it'll lead to almost something as to what you're saying, Kevin. I think it'll be played much more like this is the legend of John Wick, more than like we're making a hard prequel. So I think the animated element of it really, really works. Also, can you imagine John Wick action and animation? I mean, you can see it. All right. Well, with that said, unless you guys have any more thoughts or anything you want to rattle off real quick, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Like I said, there was so much from CinemaCon this year. There will be uploaded a little bit after this. I'm going to do an After Dark companion to this episode, where I'll just quickly rattle off more and more of the films that were talked about, some of the smaller stuff that maybe it doesn't lead to as much discussion as the bigger films. But with that said, first off, shout out to Dan for joining us. I appreciate having him on the show. Kevin, thank you for coming on again, man. I look forward to having you back in the future. Tato, where can the good people find you?
We've got lights out trivia. There's action happening every week there. Movie Battleground, we'll get some uploads going. We've got some matches in the works there. And my final thoughts on the events of the evening. Aaron, clean yo damn screen.
All right. Well, with that said, thank you, everybody. And till the next time, we will see you. Take care.